Hey everyone, and welcome to today's MBTI Debrief. I am Maria Sumilov, for those of you who haven't met me. I'm the personality decoder and certified MBTI practitioner and a master integration mentor with the Sumilov Academy of Human Integration. And I'm here with the joy genius, Lisa Payne, who is who's an Enneagram profiler. She's an emotional archaeologist and a senior integration mentor as well with the Sumilov Academy. And Lisa, what are we talking about today?
Today's topic is the 6 stages of change.
Excellent. I love the 6 stages of change, and I'll just pay homage to the creators of it. So in the 1980s, 2 well-known alcoholism researchers, Carlo C, DiClemente and J.O. Prochaska, they produced this 6-stage model of change to help professionals understand their clients with addiction problems and to motivate them to change. And this model is not only effective for people combating addictions, but it's also a really effective way or tool for personal development. And it's certainly something that, Lisa, I think you and I have both been using for quite some time. Yeah. Because honestly, it's easy to think that, if only things were different, that my life would be better. If circumstances were different, or if that person was different, or if they could see what I can see, then everything would be okay and my life would change. But unfortunately, of course, this kind of thinking, while it's really understandable, it inadvertently ends up taking our power away because we're looking outside of ourselves for things to change so that our lives will change. And honestly, I know it can be a bit hard to hear, but in every difficult situation in our lives, the common denominator is us. So
yes,
we can't continue to pass that blame. So if we want to change things in our lives, then we must change ourselves. And when we understand what stage of change we're currently at, then we can actually begin to do what we need to be doing to be effective for the change to happen. And then we can really take control of the process of the change. And whether it's our healing or achievement space in life, we regain the capacity or the feeling of having the capacity to really change our lives and be in charge of our own lives. What's your earliest memory of utilizing the 6 stages of change, Lisa?
Excuse the noise if you can hear a helicopter in the background, because I don't know what's going on, but there is some sort of
I can't hear it, so thank you, yeah.
Okay. So utilizing the 6 stages of change, I think that my earliest cognizant memory of it is actually when you taught it to me. And I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
It's like, now that I understand this, it's so easy to see where I am in a decision-making process and where others are.
Yeah.
And when I know what's going on behind the scenes in my brain, it makes it so much easier partially to control, and also not to get frustrated with myself, because I realize it's a stage. And if I want to change the stage that I'm in, then I'm going to have to take some sort of action to do it. So it helped calm my anxiety levels down.
That's very interesting, the anxiety piece, because one of the hardest things I think with change is that we feel like we don't have any control over it, and we just keep going And if the change is happening around us or within us, and we just keep going and we don't stop to even recognize the stage of change that we're currently in, we just tend to get faster and faster and faster because we can't integrate any of the information that we're taking in. We can't integrate our current starting point to then actually make some conscious decisions about what we want to do next.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point for the anxiety of change too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you just made a really good point that it's conscious. When the 6 stages of change are conscious in my mind, then I'm like, okay, right. So I'm at the pre-contemplation stage.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What do I need to do to move on? Ask myself a bunch of questions like, is this something that is a problem? I mean, we'll get into all of the stages, and there are so many different questions to ask at each stage to move on to the next stage. And I don't want to preempt what's coming, so I'm going to stop it there.
Yeah. And what we're going to do today in this debrief is we'll cover what the different stages are. And in the learning unit then that you can find at Sumilov.com, at our personal and professional development safe house, we'll look at the actual questions that we can ask ourselves and do some exercises around how we can maximize each of those stages, because it's not like we don't have power over which stage of the change we discover ourselves on. We are where we are in an unconscious way until we discover, hey, here's where we are. But then once we find it, what can we do about it? How can we maximize that particular stage of change? So that's awesome. And the 6 stages, so we have the pre-contemplation. So we'll jump into these a little bit more in detail shortly. Pre-contemplation is the first stage. Then we have contemplation. Then we have determination, action, maintenance, and termination. So let's start with the pre-contemplation, shall we, Lisa? Did you have more on that before you want to jump into this?
No, let's jump into it.
Okay, let's do it. So pre-contemplation to me is one of the painful stages of change, because in the pre-contemplation stage, we're not even aware that there's a problem. We're just getting usually a bucket load of feedback from the world or from the people around us that that we're not enough, or we're doing something that doesn't work for them, but we don't understand why. There's a lot of confusion in the pre-contemplation stage. We're not thinking that there's a problem, so therefore we're not thinking about changing. And because those reflections from the outside world that we don't understand, we can get stressed over, we can get anxiety over it, we can get really defensive when we're getting feedback from the world that doesn't fit our worldview. And we can even think that others are exaggerating. And when we're thinking this way, it's really hard to stay present, and it's really hard to. This is where we need a lot of inner parenting, is what I'm saying. Do you have a memory of or a story for us of you being on a pre-contemplation stage, or one of your clients being in a pre-contemplation stage, so that people can maybe start through a story, start to recognize if they are at this stage of change?
I think with me, with the pre-contemplation stage, there was a time, this is over 25 years ago now, when I was in such distress all the time that what I would do with friends is that if things were changing, and I wasn't informed about it, and it was really short notice. I took that as a personal rejection of me, so therefore
Yeah.
I terminated my friendships. I mean, that is really extreme. And people would come back to me and go, I just changed your plan. I just changed the plans.
Yeah.
But at the time, that hurt my heart so much, and I took it so much as a personal rejection. I thought that I had no other option except to terminate the friendship. And it was only when it happened a few times in a row.
Mm.
And then I went, this is extreme, Lisa. You know, when 3 or 4 people, when you terminate 3 or 4 friendships because, and I'll give you an example. One of them I remember really well, and it hurts my heart to this day. I had a friend, we were supposed to go to, it was me and my husband and her, and we were supposed to go to France for the day. She had a child and she was a single mother, and something happened to her child, and he was ill. And I think it was on the day of, she pulled out of it. And I completely overreacted to it. I have spent hours looking for her on Facebook to see if she's there, to apologize.
Yeah.
This is how much I still think about this.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I can feel that.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story and being so vulnerable with us on that, because that's a big that was clearly very touching to you, and it's still you know, you still struggle with that to some degree, and you're wanting to make it right. So that was really touching. I mean, it's 5:20 in the morning for me, and I'm already crying. So
yeah, sorry.
I hope you find her. I hope you find her.
I do too.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Changing lanes. So thank you for that.
What about you, Maria? Do you have a story?
Shit. I do, and I was thinking about something that I used to do, and I think a lot of INFJs can relate to. In particular, INFJs, not that this is just for INFJs, but this is a great example of pre-contemplation and making decisions from pre-contemplation stage where you don't feel like you're the problem or that you're contributing to the problem, that you feel that it's the other people. And so let's see if some of our INFJ friends can relate to this, or other people for that matter. So I used to end relationships because I perpetually felt like I was being taken advantage of. And I just kept giving and giving and giving more, not realizing that I not only had the right to set boundaries, but I couldn't actually have two-way relationships if I didn't set boundaries. So I was thinking inside myself that if the person loved me, they would know what they, in quote, should and shouldn't do. They would know how to respect me if they loved me. So they clearly don't understand, and so I'm going to slam that door on them because they're taking advantage of me for way too long. And what I didn't realize with that was that I was contributing to that situation. I wasn't aware that I had to change to learn basic boundary skills so that I didn't have to resort to the final boundary, which, of course, I'm sure everybody at this stage knows I'm talking about the INFJ door slam. And the challenge with the door slam, and I've certainly made several videos of this, and I want to take a deeper dive into it on our personal development and just the safe house, sumilov.com, because there's a lot of glorification that goes with the door slam. That, you know, oh, I finally did the door slam, I'm so brave, and, you know, everybody celebrate me. And it's an important rite of passage. I'm not saying you shouldn't have that capacity or that skill of the door slam in your arsenal. I think you totally should. And I think any person who feels taken advantage of and victimized should learn to do that so that they can utilize that when it's the time is absolutely right to do that. But I also recognize simultaneously, and I also recognize simultaneously that if that's my only tool for setting boundaries, my life's going to be really dramatic. Like my life is going to be real roller coaster all the time because I'm putting up with so much before setting those boundaries. And I constantly get myself, my hopes up, and then I get myself slammed down in this process because I go up so fast where I don't set boundaries with the person that I then come crashing down. So that's something that I've done with this pre-contemplation. So, and when we're in those situations of the pre-contemplation and we realize that the tricky thing about it is that we don't even know what we don't know. So it's in our unconscious mind. Yep. So we tend to take everything very personally when we're in that space. But when we learn that we're in this pre-contemplation stage, then we can say, okay, I can take this seriously without taking it personally. So I can take this situation of, hey, I'm in a pre-contemplation stage. I can say, okay, I'm taking this seriously enough to learn some new boundary setting skills, rather than taking it personally to mean another thing that there's wrong about me. Because you can't know what you don't know. Like basic, you know, if you think about yourself and you chastise yourself for not knowing what you don't know, and then you judge yourself for being at this stage of change. Can you imagine ever doing it to your best friend? Like we're so harsh with ourselves and we take everything so personally, especially when we're tired and triggered and we don't have a handle on our inner children. That we need
and shame comes into it.
Shame comes into it. That we go down this road of just saying there must be something wrong with me, when in fact there is nothing wrong with you. It's not an indication, you not knowing this stuff is not an indication of there's something being wrong with you. It's an indication of you not knowing that there's something going on that you're not aware, which you can't do anything about. And secondly, you not having skills to deal with this. And this is an opportunity to acquire those skills. So judging ourselves is and feeling shame around something, while it's really real, very real, it's kind of like wasted energy to keep going down that road. And you know, because you're not going to shame yourself into changing. You rarely do. In fact, if anything, shame tends to get us depressed and unable to make change. So that's a tough one. And when I find myself in this pre-contemplation stage, I actually utilize one of Mel Robbins' tools, which is the 5-second rule. And I give myself 5 seconds to feel sorry for myself or feel all kinds of ways about the situation, and then I move on. So I go, okay, oh, I've messed this up. Oh, I feel like a failure. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm done with that. Now what action am I going to take? And I find that 5-second rule particularly pertinent for this, but it takes practice to change yourself with that too. Like it takes practice to, and it takes practice to change your ego around it too, which is we're not nearly our ego is not nearly as important as what we do in our lives and who we are as people. So we need to put that ego into its place. And I find the 5-second rule very helpful in doing just that. I don't want to waste my life being depressed. I've been depressed a lot in my life. I've had PTS. I've had really bad things happen in my life, and I don't want to waste any more time on any more of my precious life that I have left on things on chastising myself. I'm not doing it anymore, and I hope that may help others make that decision for themselves. And I don't judge anybody else for doing it, for staying in that, because I know it's not my life. I'm here to support, and I'm here to support myself, create, and I'm here to support others who want the support. And I don't think I have all the answers, but if you want help, I'm certainly happy to do that.
The more tools people have, the better. Because the amount that is stuck in our unconscious minds, and it's like a little mini excavation. Every time I acquire a new tool, it's just like, oh, and that bubbles up to the surface, and it's like, oh, I can handle that because I can use this, or I know that I'm in this stage.
Exactly. Love it. So we go from the pre-contemplation stage to the next stage, which is the contemplation stage. And we go to contemplation stage when we become aware of something. So when we're in pre-contemplation, we're not aware of it. Then we become aware of it and we decide to think about the information that we've just discovered. So now we enter into the contemplation stage. And the individuals in this stage are willing to consider the possibility that they have a problem, and even maybe are hoping to change the situation that they have in hand. But as you can see there, they're not really committed to changing. They're committed to thinking about, to contemplate the situation. Oftentimes, people in the contemplation stage are not ready to change yet because they haven't yet collected enough information on what to do. And procrastination is a great example of this. We often go, oh, I'm procrastinating about this and I'm procrastinating about that. And what if you're not procrastinating? What if you're just genuinely not yet ready to change? What if genuinely you don't have enough information yet to make that change or to make that decision to change? So what if we stop judging ourselves for procrastinating and just saying, maybe this is pre-contemplation, maybe this is percolation and not procrastination. Do you have a story for us on the contemplation stage from your experience?
I can look at it from when, and I think this is for most of my clients as well, and on people on Facebook and in personal development groups. I join personal development groups for a reason, because I want to change something. So when I discovered your work, I then listened to the podcast, and then I went to your website, and I was like, yeah, okay, this resonates. However, I don't have any money, so and then I just read some more and read some more, and it's like, yeah, the things that she talks about, I would really like to do, and I would like to know more about this. And so for me, it's that in the contemplation stage, what usually happens is a lot of coincidences start happening, where I start seeing the same thing everywhere. And it's like, well, okay, maybe, or somebody will say something, but then they might have said exactly the same thing to me yesterday, and I didn't pick it up because I wasn't ready to hear it. And then I'm like, maybe, yeah, okay. There's a lot of that. That is a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Maybe. Do I? Do I want to?
I love it, Lisa, because you know you're putting that thought. Like I've been in exactly that same situation, and it wasn't until I thought about this frame of this framework together with the 3 levels of consciousness framework. So it went from pre-contemplation of the things being in the unconscious mind to going into contemplation, which often happens when we get something in our subconscious mind and we start getting those messages especially from the outside world. So,
yeah, things bubble up and then they bubble back down again, and then they bubble up and they bubble back down again. So it's like, maybe not now. And then, something, and then it's like, okay. But that's in the next stage, so I'll leave that for the next stage. How about you?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it made me think of something that I experience, and I think you experience as well in our Facebook groups. So we have 3 different Facebook groups. We have the INFJ INFP development group, INFJ INFP healing group, and the integrated life Facebook group. And we do have a Facebook group for in Finnish as well. So, but well, eheytyvä ihminen. So if you are Finnish and you're interested in checking it out too. But I see this pre-contemplation a lot in Facebook groups. And when you mentioned you join a Facebook group to change something, I think most people join a Facebook group to find out more information. And our Facebook groups are different. And I see this all the time in those groups. We are there to change stuff. So if you're a part of our Facebook group, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You join and you're asked some questions. And let's just say that you have a question around, I'm struggling with my relationships. And I want to have a close, intimate relationship, like close relationship with my significant other, but I just can't. It's just not happening. And that sounds to me like pre-contemplation / contemplation, right? But I might go and send a message to that person on Facebook and say, hey, I read your answer. Here's what I see is going on. Do you need more support around this? And when a person is in a contemplation stage, they say, I don't know, I just want to have a look around. So they're not actually yet ready to change. And the next stage that we're going to talk about shortly, the determination, they're the ones who just go, yeah, I need something, I just don't know what. But going back to the contemplation stage, I see a lot of people utilizing our Facebook groups for contemplation, not actually changing, which is something that you mentioned. And that what is something that we actually utilize those groups for, because we're there, every day there's one of our qualified mentors in those groups. We're asking questions, we're looking to find out more, information about what's actually going on for you so that we can suggest the best possible tools for you. For example, this debrief, we might say, hey, check out the 6 stages of change debrief video that we made. You can find it on YouTube, or you can find it on Facebook, or you can find it anywhere that we have. And so we want to help people beyond pre-contemplation, contemplation changes certainly in the way that we are operating. Not that there's anything wrong with the contemplation change. I think it's a really important part of the decision making, especially for your own personal development. So when you find yourself in this stage, you're really interested in learning about issues, and you also start looking around for the help that you might need. So you kind of go like, who could help me if I was to take action on this? But you're just not yet ready to take action yet. And that's cool. You need to percolate.
Definitely. And there's a reason we have 3 Facebook groups.
Yes.
You know, because with the stages of the stages of change and the levels of consciousness, each person needs different things. And
Yeah.
some people are on a healing journey, and a healing journey is a lot of contemplation.
Yes, it
a
is.
lot of pre-contemplation and contemplation.
Yeah.
Knowing that there may be something that is there that they might want to change. And then when you get to the development group is, yep, I want to change.
Yeah.
I want to do something about this. And the integration group is, I've been doing my development, and now I want to integrate all of this work that I've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And having those 2 designated groups for INFJs and INFPs as well is helpful, because I find INF, INFJ, INFP, personal development to have a very significant flavor and approach. And of course, shout out to Jana. Jana started the INFJ INFP healing group, I think in 2016, maybe, to help people who were going through my INFx Unveiled course, healing course for INFJs and INFPs. So it's incredible to have these different stage kind of containers available, and really be able to help people within the container and within the stage that they're in. Shall we move to
also, one more thing. It's also really interesting that the healing group has the most members, and then the development group, and then the integrated life group. And I look at that as like, I know we're not going to get into this model today, but the HAT model. You know, the healing, the achievement, and transcendence. So it's a pyramid, and it goes up, and there are fewer people at each level as you go up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And to me, that point highlights that there are many, many more people in pain than there are that have tools to do something about it. And that to me is quite sad, because I want people to be well. It's not sad because I think I'm so whatever advanced. Nothing like that. It's like, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. So this is one of the reasons that I do this type of thing. I don't want to speak on your behalf, Lisa.
It is.
Yeah, this is, we are determined to create a more compassionate and effective world through the Sumilov Academy. We are determined, not only determined, but we're taking action to create and achieve meaningful goals and visions together for a better world for the future generations. So we are on this journey to help, but each one of these stages of change is very important as a part of that. And I hope that if you're listening to this and this touches something in your heart, that you take that as a sign that you might be in the pre-contemplation stage about something in your life that you are experiencing pain around. So we're here if that's the case. Shall we go to determination?
Yes, let's.
Okay. I love determination stage personally for me.
You can see me just like, yes, let's.
So the determination stage is the stage where you've made a decision, you are making a decision to help yourself or to ask help from other people. So you realize that you have a problem. You've thought about it long enough to kind of say, yeah, you know what? Now is the time. I'm going to do something about this. And you've realized maybe what the main issue is or something around. So you have some clarity around what's holding you back. and you've weighed the pros and the cons. So you've been in the contemplation stage. You looked at what if I don't change and what if I do change, and the change just feels more compelling for you at this stage. So you've made all your risk reward analysis, and you finally realize that the decision, the balance is in favor of change. So give us an example of this from your own life.
The determination stage, I'm going to continue the story of when I decided to work with you, because it really helps for people to see each part of that. And at the time I was in a lot of pain, and I knew that once I had the money, because for me it was all about the money, I was never going to ask you if you had a payment plan or something, because I wasn't in that stage where I could actually ask for something like that and not feel like it was a weakness on my on my part.
Yeah.
So I was determined that when I did get some money, I was going to work with you, and I decided that I was going to shadow everything that you did. So I used to go to your seminars and and any workshops that you had, and I would be really active in the groups, and it was like, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm ready for change. That's how I think that is how it works with a lot of people. It's like all of a sudden people are more visible.
Yeah.
If we take the Facebook groups as an example, people, when they are in the determination and the next stage, they become much more visible. They're willing to put their head above the parapet to it's like, okay, let's maybe do this.
Yeah. There's almost like you get out of your own way, so you're no longer protecting yourself fiercely. You're willing to step into the spotlight of your life and kind of go, I'm just going to claim this little piece of real estate right here. Yeah. When you were talking, it reminded me of certain people in our Facebook groups. Like, you can see them. They really, they're looking to help themselves. They're looking to help other people. They're looking to start having conversations into that direction. And certainly it was no surprise to me when you like your stages of change were very gradual in your story from my memory. And people often kind of say to me, oh, how do you remember that detail about me? I might be talking to somebody, let's just say somebody's having a really hard time on one of our platforms, and we need to, let's just say that on the Zumilov.com, our safe house, one of the features that we do when we have a new person coming in, new student coming to the academy, is I do a goals call, or one of our mentors, qualified mentors, does a call to find out what the person's goals actually are, their personal and professional development goals are. Why are they there at the safe house? What do they want to learn? So I'm making these calls, and currently I'm doing the calls myself with the students. And so we're talking like this on Zoom, and they mention something, and then I remember from 5 years ago, I might have had a quick conversation with somebody online, and they say, and I say to them, oh yeah, because you used to have a challenge with this and that. How did that go? And they say, I can't believe you remember. But it's not so much that, look at how great I am that I can remember this. I mean, it's great that you're focused. It's a sign that you really care about your work when you do remember these things. Or if you don't remember, that you care about your work enough to take notes. If you don't have that kind of memory capacity, that because our capacity for memory changes throughout our life. So if you care about your work, it's not hard to remember or to take notes, to remind yourself again when you're going into meetings, and be prepared. But I tend to remember situations. So I remember when somebody told me something, in which situation they told me. So I have that capacity. And they would say, how do you remember that? And it's because I remember your determination. That's the memory where it becomes really clear. And I remember, Lisa, you were everywhere. You know, for those of you who have watched Ted Lasso and you know about Roy Kent, there's a chant, Roy Kent, he's here, he's there, he's every effing where, you know? And that was Lisa. Like, in that determination space. Like, I remember, because all of a sudden you're everywhere. And those interactions become very meaningful, in the determination stage, the interactions become very deliberate from you. So I feel like a lot of the time, as a facilitator or as a you know, a person who does this work, I have a lot of output. I take a lot of steps towards a lot of people, like thousands of people every week. But it's that determination stage where I really see people start moving toward me. They're like, okay, here's a question for you. This is what I'm wanting to understand. So we do remember those. And I certainly remember all of our students from that stage forward. But most people, I think at this stage of change, they make those serious attempts to really change immediately. So there's a sense of urgency, or in the very near future. So yeah, it really does stand out. Did you have more on that determination until we move on to action?
No, I think I'll have more when we get to the action stage.
Yep, I hear you. So the action stage, by this time, when you hit this stage, you're already proactively studying the topic, and you're already being held accountable for what you're saying you want. So you've claimed your space in determination stage, and in the action stage, you're being held accountable for actually making the changes that you claim that space for. And it's super important to faithfully carry out the exercises that you get. Say, you know, usually at the determination stage, you get a mentor, or you get a coach, or somebody that can help you with what you're going through. And in the action stage, you need to be accountable for what you're being asked to do in order to continue to stay on that track. And this action stage is usually, in my mind, where we learn to be humble. So we like, in the previous stages, it's all about us. Whereas at the action stage, it's all about saying, I'm practicing failing forward here actively. So be coachable, learn as much as you possibly can, but simultaneously be picky about what information and whose guidance you allow to influence you, because now you're practicing failing forward at this stage. So if you're failing forward at the wrong things and you're being influenced by the wrong people, you can build a life that you don't want to build, or you can end up in situations that you didn't realize that you would potentially end up. You know, there are a lot of people who get done for fraud or whatever, and they didn't know that there was anything wrong with what was being normalized around them. So they were influenced people. People who go to jail for fraud were usually people who were influenced by other people who had normalized fraudulent behavior, and then they end up paying for the price. So we need to stay humble. We need to stay, like, really question, are these people morally in the right? Can I live with the consequences of my actions in this action stage? And so who do I allow to influence me? But also when I find a person that I allow to influence myself, then how do I make sure that I stay humble and I take on that I'm being coachable, so that I can learn these new skills that will bring me to my goal. Do you have a personal example of this action stage? I'm sure you do.
I do. I've also just thought that between the determination and the action stage, so when you step out of determination, and when I step out of determination and I'm ready for action, that's when a lot of doubts can turn up.
Yeah.
And that's when I can start throwing myself under the bus again, because the change that I want to see, I know that I want to do it.
Yeah.
However, I'm getting this call from my SI that says, come back here. It's really cozy. We have a comforter for you. There's a duvet here. You'll be safe. You'll be warm. Because that action stage is the risk stage.
Yes.
And with that, so it's like going up the roller coaster, right? And we're here. And then the action stage is when we go down that roller coaster. And most people go, whoa, that's a long drop there.
Yeah.
However, how about instead of saying, oh my God, that's a real drop, or that's a risk, we put our hands up and we go, whee, as we go down. Because we're going to go down that action stage anyway, so we might as well enjoy it. And I think that that's what I found, is that at times when I get to the determination, between the determination and action stage, I have, because I'm so, all of my fears, my worries, my anxiety start to come, I don't enjoy it. Instead, if I look at it and go, oh my God, what a beautiful view, and go, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then go down and jump, head first or however into it, and take in all of the things that you said about being coachable, staying humble, because there's a real, for me, I remember when I started the IMP. And
what's the IMP for those who don't know what it is?
Oh, sorry, the Integration Mentor Program. I wasn't very coachable in the beginning. I was for the first few weeks. And then I went through this stage where my 10-year-old, my TI, was like, look, we know this stuff already.
Yeah, because you'd been mentoring people for like decades at this stage. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we just get to the good stuff? And so my TI tried to take over. And so that stay humble point was like me going, hang on a second. We're paying this money to do this course. I am not the teacher. I am paying for the teacher's expertise. TI, please go sit back on the sofa. There's a new video game or something there for you. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
However, it's not serving us right now. And if anything, if I let you keep going, it will sabotage us. So it became that the inner parenting came in very handy, to be able to tell my inner 10-year-old that it was time for her to take a seat, that she had a part to play in this.
Yeah.
However, as I was going into the action stage, this wasn't her part to play. This was for the adult parts of me.
Yeah.
And her part would come in so handily, because she's the one that's doing all the homework. She's the one that's doing all the reading. She's the one that's taking it all in and go, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
And once she learned to stop trying to jump in and take charge because she knew best about everything, it became a much easier journey for me.
Yeah.
To do the Integration Mentor Program course.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. I find, like, I've been in business for since 2001, 2003, something like early 2000s anyway. Let's say 20 years. And the longer, it's like everything else, you know, in everything else in life, the people who know little don't know how little they know, and the people who know a lot know how little they know, or know how much more there is to know, or understand that they don't know much at all. And and that combined with, you know, any fool can make things complicated. It takes a genius to make things simple. So combining those two sentiments, the longer I am in business, the more I really appreciate the basic things in business, the very core things in business. And I've certainly been that fool that when I do my work, and you've been privy to our sessions, my sessions with my mentor, Kevin, or some of them over the last while more so, and I used to show up on those calls like years and years and years ago, knowing everything. Inverted commas, I know everything. Yeah. And here's a guy who's like very established, and you don't even get opportunities to work with him. He's not available for one-to-one mentoring, and I happen to be a very lucky girl indeed. So I had to have this conversation with myself around humility, which is, yes, you might think that, you know, he's talking about basics in business, and I've been working with him for like 5 years or something, but there's a power in that, in those basics that I will miss the nuance on if I stay on this track. Now, thankfully, stay on this track of you know, thinking like I know everything. Thankfully, I have recordings of all the sessions. So now when I've kind of gotten over myself a little bit more, I go back to those recordings and listen to them. And I pick up the stuff that he told me 5 years ago, and I'm doing them now. Now I'm doing them, not because now I'm hearing them, but because it seeped in, but it took me 5 years to actually start paying attention to what he was saying. So it's very easy when we have a little bit of knowledge, and I still consider myself, even though I'm in business 20 years, I still consider myself a startup. I still consider myself learning. It's not, we don't ever know everything, and to think that we do, you know, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. We think we figure everything out if we know something. And you see this especially with MBTI, people, you know, who've never even had the training, the official training from the Myers-Briggs company. They've learned one thing about themselves, and they say, oh, every INFJ is like this, or every INFP is like this, or this is what this is. Well, no, that's not how it works. So staying humble in the action stage is very, very important, because it is very easy to get cocky once you start taking action. And as I said, an amateur doesn't really know how little they know, whereas masters know how much they don't know. I'm not calling myself a master by any stretch of the imagination. I've only really started to discover in the last, say, 3 or 4 years that how little I actually know. And it's humbling, and it's actually really exciting, because then there's lots of new things to learn.
There are.
Yeah. Shall we go to maintenance?
Yes.
So the next stage of change is maintenance. Also, originally it was called maintenance, relapse and recycling, because maintenance stage is not that you don't have any problems or things don't crop up or you don't have relapses. It's the action-oriented stage that we call breaking the pattern, and a part of breaking that pattern is to relapse, is to fail forward. And so this stage usually takes months or years to complete, because the maintenance stage is where you really you break the pattern and you establish new patterns that will change your life. And if it's something that's been really traumatic, it can take years to go through this stage. Because change requires building this new pattern of behavior over time so that we normalize the new way of being and denormalize the old way. And no evolutionary journey, of course, is a direct line. So have you seen that, how I think business goes from A to B straight line, how it really goes squiggly, 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 squiggly. And so don't be afraid to relapse, because you will. So if you judge yourself for relapsing, then you're going to sabotage your own journey. So yeah, tackle one issue at a time and keep going and be prepared to fail forward and stay humble and ask for help. Even in this maintenance stage, we still need help from other people. Do you have a story for us, Lisa?
I do. Inner parenting and the 4 people within. It's now my go-to. It's my go-to mindset. And I still relapse occasionally. I still get angry at somebody and don't handle things in the way that I feel that I should. The thing is that now it's easier to recover from it.
Yeah.
It's easier to get myself back to the equilibrium. It is easier to get myself away from my savage inner critic.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I'm human.
Yeah.
I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And because I made a mistake, I can either go back and try and fix it.
Yeah.
Or I can just say, I'm human, I made a mistake, and move on, or anything in between.
Yeah.
Those two points. So I feel like my brain is much calmer now than it used to be. Right. I used to have to put on music or podcasts to quiet all of the noise in my head, and I don't feel the need to do that anymore.
That's really interesting that you say that, because you're not the only person whom I've heard say that, and I used to do that too, just constantly listen to something so that you'd be constantly redirecting your mind. But because your mind was sabotaging, well, for me, my mind was sabotaging myself so much that I recognized that I had to override it by just constantly listening to something. But then after I'd done enough inner parenting, and after I'd had a handle on my thoughts and a handle on my feelings and acceptance of my feelings, then I was able to stop listening to something all the time, to redirect myself, and actually, so I was no longer outsourcing the redirection. It was now coming from within. But for me, it took some time. And I remember another client telling me about this exact thing. They used to listen to podcasts or relaxation tapes all the time, even when they were asleep. And they, a couple of months ago, I've stopped doing that. And I'm sleeping so much better, and I'm staying more present with myself, because, it's easy to become addicted to that. It's easy to overdo the listening too, and not the implementation. So knowing how to use those tools.
You hit a key point, which is presence. Maintenance requires presence.
It does.
Until it becomes like driving, where there are certain things that you do now that you don't even think about when you get in the car. They are so automatic. Yeah.
And that driving piece, the automation of the driving, it triggered a memory in my mind that we've had floods here, as you know, Lisa, but perhaps other people haven't known. And the roads can be very slippery because they're not field roads, they're gravel roads, and they can be very slippery after, and you can have potholes that just like the bottom just falls out and of the roads and stuff. And you were talking about the driving metaphor. You know, when you first learn to take off, you go, okay, look back, you know, put the car into gear, look back, indicate, look back again, and then you can move up. And you have to like do those in those stages. And you learn driving in the city, or you learn to drive wherever you are. So your maintenance stage is whatever the parameters are that you need to fulfill in order to be safe in that environment, right? So you're learning what you have to learn. But how about you take yourself off-road? How about you take yourself to gravel roads? How about you take yourself to, to a space where you stretch that space of normalcy, you stretch yourself. So my thing here, because of where we live, is now it's normalized for me to drive. So I have a 4-wheel drive that has, it's not an automatic, so it's a manual drive, which I prefer, because when I tow a horse box, I feel like I need to have more control over the controls than just driving an automatic car. And one of the things when you're driving after floods, or, you know, the roads are slippery, is you have to have the capacity to use 2 different gear sticks, depending on what needs to be done. So the normal gear stick, as well as the 4-wheel to 2-wheel drive gear stick in a moment's notice. So I've normalized that for me, because that's what my surroundings require. But now when I go and drive in the city, I have to remind myself about city driving. City driving is different. There's a lot more going on around you. There's a lot, you know, there's more things that can happen. Pedestrians, trams, blah, 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 blah.
Bicycles, motorcycles.
Bicycles, exactly. Yeah. Whereas here it's like, okay, a deer, a cow on the road, a horse rider, a pothole that's like this deep, a kangaroo, a wombat, any number of things. And so it's just we need to understand that the maintenance level that we have in this situation is not necessarily the maintenance level that we have in another situation. So if we have done a lot of inner parenting around our finances, for example, we don't necessarily have the same skills around relationships. So we can't go around berating ourselves saying, I thought I already had learned this lesson. Well, sure, but did you apply it in this circumstance? Have you practiced failing forward in this circumstance? And that's where what I think about when I think about maintenance stages is across different circumstances. Here are transferable skills for you. Now you learn to use it in this finances, learn to use it in this relationships, learn to use it in this work. You know, it's the same thing. Learn to use it in city driving, learn to use it in country driving. So the skills are the same skills, slightly different, but how do you maximize those skills in different areas? And that's where I feel like the maintenance stage can also take a really long time, because we're taking those skills, those transferable skills, and just bringing them across a huge variety of topics.
Yeah, because we've got the depth because we've built the roots in one area. Now we need the breadth to be able to do it across multiple different parts of our lives.
It's the action stage that creates the depth, and then the maintenance stage that creates the breadth. Cool. So when we're creating lasting change and actual life change, we have to work across different topics, keeping in mind that we will have relapses. And this is particularly, I think, pertinent for anybody who's addicted to anything in particular. Like I used to be addicted to personal development, like listening to the podcast and things. It's okay to relapse consciously. It is completely okay to, relapse and not judge yourself, but to actually learn from it. Now, obviously, let's just say that you have an addiction to a violence toward other people, or substance abuse where other people are affected. It's not okay to have consequences of your actions be put on other people. That's not okay. But what you can do if you find yourself relapsing in those situations is learn from it. Have a really good look at what consequences your actions have, and make a conscious decision to choose to have those consequences going forward or not. So ask for help. Who can help you? Who's the right mentor for you in this situation if you're really struggling? So don't be afraid to relapse, and recognize if you can when you start to veer into the relapse, so you can maybe start learning some skills around pulling yourself out of that before you relapse. People tend to learn from their experience of relapsing, and that is oftentimes what we call failing forward.
Yep.
So that was the 5th stage of change. Now we go to, not determination, but termination. So the termination stage is the ultimate goal in this change process, in the 6 stages of change. And this is not because you're not worthy as a person if you don't reach this stage, but because when you reach this stage, you no longer feel like your old pattern is running your life. So you're no longer being threatened. Your person, who you are, is no longer threatened by the old pattern, right? So you feel some more power over your old struggles. So you've seen that you can change things, and you're starting to feel more comfort in relapsing. So the relapsing doesn't become such a big deal anymore. So this is where the old challenges no longer drive your life, drive your work, drive your relationship, drive your finances. And this is where we move away from that drama triangle. Do you have a story for us on a termination of a particular challenge that you experienced in your life?
I look at my work with the 4 people within, that I've reached the termination stage with how I used to be.
Okay.
So there's a lot of maintenance and like you said, work across, so breadth. But what I don't do now is I don't go down that old path ever. As in, like, it's not the first place that I think of going.
Yes.
When I get triggered, I may go into like paralysis, but I don't actually go down the old path and the old ways. I've been doing this long enough that I can stop myself from doing that. I may not always have the best responses, and sometimes it's a reaction. However, it's never me going down the old path, because the old path was very passive aggressive for me, because I was in the victim stage of on the drama triangle, and I don't feel that way. And I also at times have occupied the rescuer stage, and I don't feel that. Now I'm amazed at how quickly I have stopped being the people pleaser, and how I don't now, when something happens, I don't automatically jump in to want to be the person.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was something that happened earlier today, and I went, that's not my job. And then I just went about my day.
Yeah.
And it was fine, it was all fine.
That is such a good point, because when we hit the termination stage, we don't feel like we have to change other people anymore. We're not having that sense of urgency of preaching to everybody about everything anymore. We just go like, oh, you do you. It's all good. I can love you from over here, or I can not love you from over here. I don't have to be attached to any of that in any way.
Absolutely. I will watch the drama from very far away, and
Yeah.
I won't be running to come and get involved
Yeah.
in it,
Or
because it's not my circus, not my monkeys.
100%. Yeah. Perfect. And I was going to say, or I'm not even going to watch your circus. I trust that you're on exactly the right path for you, and we'll take it from there. And I'll see you when I see you, type thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I was thinking about this. I think the termination stage, I touched it a little bit on my personal experience, which was, I find it really hard to call myself a personal development leader anymore, or personal development like a teacher or anything like that, because I don't, that to me has been terminated. I don't have to help other people anymore. If they want the help, they'll take it. They'll come and ask me, and they're compensating me for it properly. So I don't feel like I have to be preaching to feel important. And that certainly used to be the case in the early days, where I felt like, oh, I have this piece of information, I need everybody to know it. Where now it's like, actually, I have all kinds of pieces of information, and you'll come if you ask. Or when you're ready, or if you're ready, or I don't even care if you ever get ready. You're ready when you're ready. If you're ready, cool. Ask me, cool. I'll answer if I feel like we have a reciprocal relationship. And that was something that was really good to let go of, was that sense of the need to feel important and need to be heard, because I would give myself, my time, my expertise away for free because I didn't feel heard in my life. So I felt like I needed to hear the sound of my own voice in order to feel like I even existed. I mean, that's the narcissistic parental wound. You don't believe, you're fighting to be your own person, and that was the way that I did it. Whereas now I know I am my own person. I don't need to hear the sound of my own voice anymore, which is nice. So I'd rather be, grooming the horses or giving them pedicures than talk about myself or whatever.
Way more fun.
And we're doing these debriefs and these learning units because we are creating that platform, and we have been creating the platform, sumalov.com, for those who want to take this journey with us, who want to make real, actual change in life and achieve meaningful goals and visions together. So that's why I'm here. I'm not here because I want to feel important.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on that before we wrap up for today?
I feel complete.
You feel complete. Okay, cool. So I hope that everyone listening into this debrief today, that you felt that you got a solid understanding of the 6-stage model of change. And if you are wanting to practice more of this, because Lisa and I are going to go into the learning unit now that it's going to be published in the academy in sumalov.com. So if you want to take that journey with us, head on over to sumalov.com and apply for a membership or a tuition space for our academy. And if you're good to go from here, you know what you're doing, no worries, keep going. Let us know how you go in the comments. And if you're already a member of the Sumalov Academy, you can just log on in and get the learning unit from there. So thank you everyone for spending this time with us today. And Lisa and I are going to continue now into the learning unit part, and we'll see you at the next one. See you everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.